All right, welcome back to another episode of Kitchen Group Research. Today I'm going to tell you about another paper that was recently published. We've been on a roll at the end of this year. Many things finally getting caught up. This is a follow-up of the paper that was published yesterday, or that I talked about yesterday, on ligand stabilization of nanoparticles in the photo-driven or light-driven hydrogen production process. And what I'm going to show you today is that we have developed a way to optimize the synthesis conditions for pure metals and ligand compositions for a series of metals, and I'll talk about how that worked. So this paper was written by Maya, and the other students, Eric did the high-throughput experiments, Zoe works in the Millstone group and did the characterization work, and Jill and Stefan are collaborators on the project, and this work is funded by the Basic Energy Sciences Office of the Department of Energy. Okay, so to get right to it, the problem that we solved in a nutshell is that we have a complicated synthesis. It's moderately complicated. We have wells that we put solvent, ligands, metal salts, photosensitizer, and other things in it, and we want to quickly and efficiently find the optimal way of putting those things together, what concentrations, which ones do we want, and find out what's the best way to make hydrogen. So we do that by a high throughput reactor I talked about yesterday. It's basically a 96 or 108 well plate, and we have a robot that can automatically fill the wells with anything we want, and we just have to make a design of experiment approach that will give us those answers. And then once we know what the best answers are, then we can do focus characterization. And we did this with iron, nickel, copper, and gold in this work. All right, so this is the high throughput digital workflow that we do. We have a design of experiment space over here, either box banking or CCI. It's really a classical design of experiment approach. We have the photoreactor over here that we can do 96 or 108 well plates and measure the darkness of a hydrogen-sensitive tape. Then there is an automated data analysis suite that generates this kind of data where we can see the kinetic traces of hydrogen production in each well, and we can map this into this contour plot that shows us where is the best spot. And that comes over into something like this, and then we iterate in this cycle until we can identify the red spot, which is considered the best. And then the red spot can be done, we can do detailed studies to see what exactly we made. All right, so I'll show you one typical result for gold. This is concentration of gold, concentration of peg-thiol. We optimized the photosensitizer in a separate experiment so that we could do it this way. And we can, in just the dots that are shown, find the red spot that is considered to be the very best in terms of hydrogen production. And on the right, you can see from the first iteration, we're showing the error in the model that's developed by the DOE. And by the third or fourth, which is the last iteration, the error comes down quite a lot and is basically the same across there. So we can find optimal conditions for all of these metals like this. Now, once we know where the best thing is, then we can focus on characterizing what we have there. And in each case, we are able to see that nanoparticles form. And because we have the peg-thiol around, they all form stable nanoparticles that we can do many cycles of reactivity with. And they're not very big nanoparticles. So we saw nanoparticles for gold, for copper, for iron, and nickel. And one thing that turned out to be a little bit surprising is that for the gold and copper, we saw metallic gold and copper nanoparticles. That's not surprising. Those are more noble metals. But for nickel, we saw evidence in XPS of nickel oxides forming. And in iron, we saw evidence that iron sulfides are forming. So that opens a new door to, the in situ synthesis of oxide particles and sulfide particles for more reactive metals. And interestingly, these are both very active at producing hydrogen, but only when the peg-thiol is present, because otherwise they precipitate out. All right, so just to conclude this brief video overview of our paper, we used a combination of design of experiments with the high-throughput experimental system to optimize those in situ synthesis components or parameters. We looked at iron, nickel, gold, and copper. The best activity was found with these metal concentrations and peg-thiol concentrations around 1 millimolar, so around 1-to-1 ratio. And the combined design of experiment high throughput effort really let us focus the characterization on the places that matter most. That is, we can look at the places where the activity is highest, and because we have a map of the space, we can even choose which directions we might do further characterization on. Iron and nickel showed really remarkable activity when they were stabilized with the peg-thiol, and even though they don't appear to form metallic nanoparticles as you might have thought or expected or hoped. That's the value of having the high throughput approach, though. We discovered that they react and make reactive catalysts anyway, without having to understand upfront whether it was going to do what we thought or not. Okay, so that is it. Here's the paper if you want to review it, and if you like the video, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future ones coming up. So thanks for listening, and